persuasive speech on the zero-sum game, or the zero-sum game mindset. This research is in its infancy, and a lot of it is not full circle complete yet, and this presentation might not be full circle complete yet, but I will do my best to just give you what I got. So, key characteristics of a zero-sum game. There are a fixed number of resources, and there's a direct trade-off of win or loss. So if I win $1, then you lose $1. So the net change is 0. If we add up the wins and losses at the end together, the game does not grow. It's purely competitive. So the zero-sum game mindset, as put by Dr. Patricia Andrews-Farron and Dr. Frederick Gotts, sounds smart to me, is a general worldview in which one person's gain must come at the expense of another person. They say it's a belief about the nature of success and how the game of life works, a belief about the fundamental structure of rewards or incentives, namely, they exist in fixed limited amount that makes one person's success incompatible with others. Now I just want to play a game, not necessarily a zero-sum game, and I might fumble on myself a bit, bear with me. I am borrowing this from a video I saw a while ago, and I could not find the video, unfortunately, but if I do, I'll put it in my outline. Player A and Player B. Player A has a red sign and a green sign. Player B also has a green sign and a red sign. They take turns. The first turn, they don't know which one's going to put up. You can think of green as a yes and red as a no. So they interact with each other. And let's say player A puts up a green sign. Yes, let's connect, let's interact. Player B says no. Player A would get 1 point for putting up a green sign in that situation, and player B would get 5 points. If both players put up a green sign, they both get 3 points. If both players put up a red sign, they both get 1 point. So if you're thinking as I'm player A and I want to beat player B, you would probably try to put red first right away and hope that green puts up 1, because then you would have more points by the end of the game. If you have more turns, it gets a little trickier, because if you put up a red sign and they put up a green sign, well, they're going to feel that they got screwed over, and the next time they're probably going to put up a red sign. And then this kind of cycle starts where you're both putting up a red sign getting less points than if you were both putting up green signs. So if this goes on for 10 rounds, then the people who actually just put up green signs both times are going to almost certainly make more points in the long run cumulatively together than if another group were to be doing this, playing the game differently. Does that make sense? So, there is an article written by a man named Nick Williams. That's all I know. He doesn't put any research in. There's an article, and me, myself, I have been contemplating the zero-sum game in this information for 2 years officially, and been thinking about things like success and comparing myself to others for a long time. So Nick Williams talks about how the basis of winning in our society is being admired by other people rather than being despised. We stand to gain in a world that has been created by us comparing ourselves to everyone else. There's a chance of coming out on top or a fear of coming out on bottom, and so we play this game that we have to be doing well in the eyes of other people, and we often play this game by ourselves. I don't know if this is good for my grade, but I really do just want to do my best to inform you of what I'm thinking about, and my persuasive speech is going to dive more into where this leaves off, but I'm just going to read from Nick Williams' article because I agree with what he says. or at least it's helpful for me. We don't just want to win. We want to win and feel worthy of it. We want the personal validation. We want to experience the glory that comes with being a winner. That's what we wanted all along, not simply the bald fact that we have come out on top in a system of ranking that makes up this inherently competitive society of ours. We're glory hounds. We're hungry for the sweet taste of success. We want to feel that we've got where we are today by our own steam. As we've already said, it can't just be that we're born into a better situation or that we're gifted with more intelligence or cunning than our fellows. It has to be some sort of genuine, honest-to-goodness, personal virtue that we ourselves are responsible for. This euphoric hit of success is founded purely upon this belief. The belief, the fact that I have excelled in the struggle, demonstrates the existence of some special quality in myself that I myself am responsible. This is what the ego covets above all else, the feeling that we're special in a good way rather than a bad way. This feeling, entirely illusory as it may be, is what finite game players are playing for, people who only play the game for one round. There is therefore deliberate dishonesty in this, and because of this dishonesty, which underpins everything we do in social life, we are obliged to live our lives in an entirely superficial or shallow way. We have no choice in this. As soon as we start playing the game, we're locked into it. That's what the game is all about. We can't go deeply into anything because that would blow the whole thing. Not being superficial would be a disaster. The flip side of this is that we automatically believe that if someone doesn't make it in society or doesn't do particularly well, then that must be because of some personal flaw or weakness in their character. They deserve what they get, just as we deserve what we got. So we can rest content that all is well with the world, without the excuse for our shocking lack of compassion. Our ruthlessly competitive way of life simply wouldn't be able to continue. We don't want that. The game must go on, no matter what the cost. And if our circumstances change for the worse, we will judge ourselves just the same, because that's the way it works. What's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, after all. And really, I'm just trying to point that there are other ways to play that game. And the game keeps going. And yeah, that's my informative speech. Stay tuned for my perspective. And my informative speech was about the zero-sum game mindset. And I'm gonna kind of bounce around that. I'm thinking of a lot of different stuff. My brain wants to go for these kind of things I think about, these kind of bigger ideas, and I might be a little chaotic, but I'm going to try my best to kind of ground what I'm thinking about to this speech. So the zero-sum game mindset is basically the if I'm winning, you're losing mindset, or if you're winning and I'm losing mindset, and it gets in the way of collaboration. The basis of it is that we're comparing ourselves to others constantly, that we can't go into something deep and real because of the consequences that might happen if we do so. The way other people see us is more important than us being ourselves. So for my persuasive speech, I want to persuade you to be yourself in your own time. So I have a point in which there's a conflict with that. People talk about there's no bad parts. I don't know if you've ever heard of parts work. It's something that happens in therapy to where there's different parts of ourselves that conflict with each other. One part of ourselves wants to reach for the candy bar, and the other part of ourselves wants to be healthy, disciplined, and things like that. And so there's a saying that there's no bad parts, there's just wrong times to use them, maybe, wrong places to present them. And my way of thinking of that is that you can either create a positive space for yourself consciously or a negative space for yourself unconsciously. So unconsciously we make decisions all the time. I didn't think about scratching my nose just now. A little nervous, and it just happened. I'm distracting myself in ways, things like that. And so, space to exist is something that I think is really important for personal growth and for collaboration, for finding your people, for creating a life that you enjoy and that you can feel is benefiting yourself and other people. And so when our heads kind of hijack this idea and say, no, if I give all of me space to exist, something bad's gonna happen. I'll make a mistake. I'll hurt someone. I have anger issues. I'll freak out and yell at someone. And these are all like valid things to worry about and think about. But I want to get back to creating a positive space consciously, because if you don't create a positive space consciously, that part of you still exists, and it's gonna find some way to exist, whether within your awareness or outside of your awareness. This is why I believe things like addiction happen, and violence, and things alike. I would argue that violent people are not being themselves. They're trapped not being themselves, and the deeper part of you is softer. It's a balanced part of yourself. So we see a lot of violence in males throughout history, and I think it's because everyone has both a masculine and feminine side. And I know me personally, I was told I cannot have a feminine side. I had to be a very manly man. That's what was expected of me, and it completely crossed my wires. There's a part of me that wants to just sit back and allow and create and be vulnerable and express myself, and it's still something that I'm struggling with today, and that's why I come back to in your own time. I'm going to use myself as an example and just be a little vulnerable. So I grew up Christian in a very, I'm not going to say Christianity is bad, but the environment in which it was exposed to me was negative for my personal life. I was told, I'll use example, drugs. Drugs were really bad. It was the last thing I would ever be able to do. And I told myself, yeah, if I did drugs, I'd be a bad person, and I won't do them. And at 13 years old, my friends started experimenting with drugs a little bit, and I liked my friends more than I liked my parents. And so I started experimenting a little bit with nutmeg, a legal drug. And I got caught, and my mom threatened to send me to boarding school if she ever found me doing something like that again. I didn't get sent to boarding school, and I convinced her that it was some joke my friend and I were talking about. And she gave me the benefit of the doubt, but she didn't believe me. But so I stopped for 3 years until I tried cocaine for the first time. And I want to say that it's not illegal to say that you've done illegal drugs. It's illegal to possess illegal drugs, and I have no drugs on me. You can check it. And so now I had a double life, a me at home and a me with friends at school. And so no space to exist at home, at school, and going back to that masculinity thing, everyone thought I was a very weak person because I was just kind of quieter. I was timid. I wasn't a manly man like was expected of me, until I started taking drugs, and I took a little more drugs than my friends, and they started to respect that, and they were like, oh man, I was wrong about you, you know. So that kind of started this mental habit now, comparing myself to others, thinking, oh, okay, cool, you know, I can have some respect now, and people are gonna see me as a cool guy now. Which kind of backfired because I went to college, and instead of thinking of going to connect with other people, I thought, I should go take more drugs because drugs felt good. And I
took as many drugs as I could. I took double digits, a lot of them, basically everything that I could besides meth and heroin. And I may have done meth because there was a mystery drug, and you know, there's drugs are, you don't know what you're getting when you're out on the street. And I could go into a whole other thing of why I think drugs should be legal, but and this actually might loop back around to what I'm saying about people. But the point is that I didn't give that part of me conscious space to exist. I told it it was bad, and I said it wasn't allowed to happen. And then what happened, I was really tempted to do it, and I had this part of me that wasn't in my control. And it lasted for like 3 years. I did a lot of research on addiction. Luckily, I have the internet, and I have some way to get information from other people. And this kind of thing started to happen where I had to let myself be an addict. I had to let myself use and let myself, you know, kind of be in this pattern of decline long enough to accept parts of me that I wasn't accepting before. And as I stopped beating myself up and I started to look at these parts of me, it wasn't drugs that were the problem, it was this lack of connection to other people. And so I started to put a little more effort into other kinds of highs, like connecting with people and specifically music. I had a big dream to be this big, crazy, famous musician because I took acid and I was like, oh, this is possible, I can do that. And I'll get back to that too, but and I couldn't make the kind of music that I wanted to make if I was on the floor passed out or, you know, just in this state of decline. So kind of had this motivation, and it really did work. I did more and more music and less drugs over time. And now I can say today I'm clean, sober, and healthy, miraculously. I have no idea how. And so giving myself space to exist helped me have more control over myself and make better decisions. And I'll get back to the fame thing. I wanted to be really famous, and I thought that was a negative thing, and it very well could be. The way I was thinking about it would have been terrible for me. You hear stories about people wanting to be connected with other people, and then once they get famous, they feel even more isolated than ever. And if that would have happened at the time when I was really like, oh, this has to happen, I would not be in a good mental state at all. And so I struggled with that for a long time. Instead of connecting with people and thinking about fame and stuff like that and making something of myself. But it was happening unconsciously. It would be an intrusive thought that came up because I had the idea, but then I said, no, that would be a bad thing. And so I had to, over time, own that, like, yeah, I have that dream, and I want to be famous. And then when I did that, and I actually owned it, it wasn't an intrusive thought. And I wasn't thinking, oh man, if I have an opportunity, I'm gonna grab it. I'm thinking, oh, I wouldn't want to grab the first opportunity that I had to be famous. I went from writing, I'm tired of the world on repeat, to lyrics like I'm tired of the room on repeat. My perspective changed about it to where it's less about me separate from the world and the world looking at me, and more about me connecting with the people in my life. Famous is recognized as an individual, I guess, to me now. It's respect for my art and being someone of positive influence, maybe. And maybe at the end of my life, I could create a big body of work that I'm really proud of and could get famous someday. But I just really enjoy my life as it is, and now that I've accepted that I'm someone that would like to be famous, I don't have to be so crazy about it anymore. And so it goes back to that, giving myself and all parts of me conscious space to exist, then it allows me to have control over myself, and the decisions that I make aren't as impulsive, they can be thought out, and I can look at things with a wider view. And that kind of goes back to drugs a little bit. And I kind of like to use drugs as a metaphor for people in which we're all very potent. We all have an effect on each other. And so you think, you know, I can't let myself be who I am because I'm going to affect people in this way. But drugs are not inherently bad. They're medicine. They're potent substances that you can find in the natural world, or you can create out of a bunch of chemicals. It really doesn't matter how, because they all have a different effect on the different dosage. So tobacco, for example, if you take a lot of it, it'll make you feel relaxed even though you're actually not relaxing. And you'll have, you'll want it again. It'll be this kind of addictive thing. It can be really negative. But a little tiny bit of tobacco clears the sinuses. And that's it. It's used in some cultures to clear the sinuses. And so that goes back to people in your own time. You can be totally yourself and own yourself, but you don't have to force yourself into the room, into the environment. Just give yourself space to exist within yourself, right? And you can make the decision, oh, is this a good time to use this part of me? Would this have an effect that's positive for the environment? Maybe, maybe not. Mistakes are okay. Within the creative process, most of my favorite pieces came from making some mistake and then thinking, ooh, how am I gonna walk this back and, use this for the piece kind of thing. And life isn't perfect, people aren't perfect, but it's moving still, and we gotta keep going. And so giving yourself conscious space to exist helps you make these decisions, right? Instead of, I'm not allowed to make a mistake, and then you do, because everyone makes mistakes. The person who doesn't identify with someone who can make a mistake isn't gonna be accountable and walk it back and say, okay, how can I make this better? I made this mistake, how can I make this, into something useful for people? They're just gonna pretend they never made that mistake and keep moving, because it really only matters what people think of them. But if you have that, space to exist throughout all of you, you can start to make these, decisions that lead to better outcomes. And you can experiment and you can try new things, and they don't have to go necessarily well right away for it to lead to something beautiful eventually. There's a practice, and I can't remember what it's called. It's like Katsuin or something. I should probably look it up, but the basis of it is that there's a tradition of people creating pottery and then breaking the pottery and then gluing it back together with gold, and it makes something even more beautiful than a nice, perfect, complete pot. And it kind of goes back to that for humanity. We do our best to make ourselves into these perfect beings, and when it inevitably fails, we feel broken, we feel like we've messed up, like there's something wrong with us. But then giving yourself space to exist, to look at these parts of yourself that are less preferable, they can be changed and they can be used in the right environment. I could try to pretend that I never did drugs or something like that, and maybe that would go semi-well for some contexts, but within my life and connecting with other people, well, there's a lot of people out there who've done drugs who maybe haven't been able to get sober, and so I can say, oh, you know what, like, yeah, I have these parts too, and now there's a connection with other people. Not because I'm perfect, but because I'm here, because I'm honest about it. And so giving yourself space to mess up or to not want to mess up, or all of that is kind of how you can play this game, is the point of life, right? And get deeper and make mistakes. Even if some people are going to judge you, it doesn't end there. And other people's view of you is not the most important thing. It's important, sure. If everyone turns on you, it's not a great thing, right? There's a game to be played, but it's just part of it. And it's up to you to change the rules of the game. And if you can be steady within yourself and accept yourself for who you are, you know, you can find environments where people appreciate parts of you that you didn't think could be appreciated. You're not for everyone. Tobacco isn't for everyone. Morphine isn't for everyone, but it's for someone who's in excruciating pain, right? So you kind of see yourself as this potent substance. Maybe not for everyone, but for the right environment, for the right illness, for the right people. There's a space for you on this planet filled with 8 billion people, and you don't have to fit in everywhere. But you are more than welcome to fit in within your own psyche. And I think that's what I want to say is that I would challenge you to allow whatever thoughts, beliefs, desires come up, at least within your own conscious awareness. It's not your job to share everything with other people, but being honest with yourself is a very powerful thing, and I really do believe that it can create more and more joy in your life. And yeah, that's my persuasive speech.